said less than 1 inch.
We are live.
Before I left the house.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to Elyria City Council meeting for February 1st, 2021. We are streaming live. Welcome, everybody. At this particular time, I ask everyone stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of reflective silence. I said that in reverse. Moment of reflective silence first, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, very good. Ms. Simmons, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To
To the flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America and to the republic
for which it
for which
stands,
stands
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible,
and justice for
liberty
all.
and justice for all.
Very good. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody. Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sira.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Baird.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
There are none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Mr. Sarah,
Second
second by Mr. Baird. Any further discussion?
question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President, and happy February City Council and happy Black History Month. For this year, we're going to be highlighting local living Elyria Black history figures, and we were excited today to be able to honor our very own Councilwoman Donna Mitchell as the first African-American woman elected to City Council, and so we're proud of her. And
Congratulations, Donna.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you all.
Good recognition.
Yes. Yeah.
No doubt. Definitely want to give people their roses while they can still smell them. And so we're excited about that. And then just in terms of city business, we've been working with the department heads on finalizing their budgets. We're looking forward to presenting those at this upcoming finance meeting. We're really excited. As you know, budgets are reflective of your values and what's important and priorities for the city. So we're really looking forward to presenting that to you all next Monday. And outside of that, I'll leave it to the safety service director and the team to kind of share any kind of city updates.
Any questions for the mayor? No? Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Good evening, everyone. Just two quick updates. If you have not realized it yet, it's been snowing for the last couple days. And kudos to our street department team and other ancillary departments that have supported them and the big trucks. I think all 9 of our trucks are out on the roads. They had just gotten everything, what we call wet curb to curb this afternoon. And then this evening, as you are aware, it came down again. So our trucks are out in full force and will be throughout this event. So kudos to Mr. Curtis and Mr. Williams for managing that once again. And I will say it till I'm blue in the face, and I know Mr. Jesse would appreciate this. The reason we're able to do this is because we have new trucks on the road due to issue 6 over the last number of years. So kudos to the residents for giving us that opportunity. The last thing that I have is, if you have not been in the utility side of City Hall, where you go in on the left side of the building, late last week, the kiosk for public utilities was installed. So that will be up and running in the next week or two, where the residents will be able to have accessibility before hours and for some time after hours to come in and pay their utility bills in that little glassed-in area. The main doors will be locked. The outside doors will be set up on a timer and will lock automatically at certain times. So there's a little bit more of opportunity for the residents to come in and pay their bills. And again, kudos to our communications team from the electrical guys. They saved the city quite a bit of money by running the electric to do that. And also to Mr. Schneider and the Building and Lands team for coordinating this project. And that kiosk was paid for as well by the COVID CARES Act money that allows us to do things that was touchless and due to the fact that we have COVID. So kudos to those team members throughout the city, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Director Brubaker? Mr. Baird?
Yeah, a little bit about that. And this really is more financial. I knew we were quite far behind in collections. What's the status of that, if I might ask, if you know that? If not, we can pass it on to the finance director.
Well, I can tell you that with the CARES Act money that you folks through the mayor's office had appropriated, I believe that the Salvation Army has expended the help for bills. We are turning water off for lack of payment now, but again, I don't know the exact dollars on where we're at. I don't know if Mr. Plesky would have that or if that would be a better number for Ms. Connor.
Through you, Mr. President. I have not seen a delinquent report recently, but Debbie Connor did say that collections were improving because they were shutting off delinquent accounts. So I can pass that information on to Debbie to see if she can't get us an updated report.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. I think we all would.
Yep. Any other questions for Director Brubaker? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Brubaker, with this new kiosk, can I come in and have an envelope with my utility bill and just deposit in a slot, or I have to actually pay through this kiosk?
There is a slot in there that you can slide it through, and what they did do on the backside, the inside, instead of just having a lockbox there that we would access from inside the building, we actually built a small room, if you will, with a locked door for security purposes. Nobody can access it but our utilities team, but yes, you'll be able to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Brubaker? All right. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Council President. Today being the first day of the month, of the new month, we received our distribution from the Regional Income Tax Agency. It's down 28.53% from the first distribution from last February. So today we received $1,248,457. The first distribution in February of last year was $1,746,884. So we're down $498,427 with this distribution. So 1 month and 1 day into the new year, we're down over $900,000 in income tax revenues. So as I mentioned before, I think this trend will continue through the first quarter and possibly into the second quarter of the year until we start to level off. So not good news.
Any questions for the Finance Director? Thank you, Ted. Law Director Deary.
Thank you, President Stewart. I don't have much in the way of a report, although I would like to say that one of my department's longtime employees, Jean Anderson, has retired. She's recently completed over 20 years of service with the department. She survived, as I like to put it, Mr. Schilling, Mr. Sarazin, and now me, and we wish her well. This most recent year has not been what anybody has expected, and so us wishing her well on her latest adventure and retirement's not exactly been what we had hoped, but we still have managed to plan a little something for her, and we wish her the best.
Yes, please
And that's
pass
all I
it on
have.
to all council members that we wish her well. And thank her for her service. Any other questions for the law director? Does anybody have anything? Okay. Mr. Firestein, Assistant Safety Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report of this time.
Ms. Calvert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to share that today we received news that Governor DeWine has issued notice of his executive budget for fiscal years 22 and 23. And that includes $460 million in relief to small businesses. So we have a little ways to go yet to see where that's going to fully shape and mold, but we will definitely stay on top of that and make sure that we communicate that with the Elyria business community to see what we can do to assist.
All right, very good. Any questions for Ms. Calvert or Mr. Firestein? All right, Elyria Police Department, Chief Whiteley.
I have no report, Mr. President, but I can take on any questions that anybody has.
Any questions for the chief? All right, Elyria Fire Department, Chief Mack.
Good evening, Mr. President and Council. I do wish to report the end of January, we did have 2 long-term employees retire. Fire Marshal Mandoke, who did start with the city in 1989 with wastewater and came over to the fire department in 1995, retired at the end of the month, as well as Inspector Males. Both of them had contributed greatly in the fire prevention side of things, and they will be greatly missed. That will take us to 61 total members of the 88 that were authorized, and we look forward to bringing in a few more members in the next month or two.
All right. Any questions for Chief Mack? Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you to the chief. On the announcement of the 2 retirees, are there 2 candidates set for those 2 positions at this time within the ranks?
The promotional tests have been given. The results have been put out. We are just waiting for the candidates to make a choice one way or the other. Obviously, the fire prevention job is quite a change in the schedule. And at this point in time, they're each evaluating. There's 2 candidates on the list for assistant chief. And once there's a selection there, then we will replace them with the captain and lieutenant. If neither of those people desire the position, then we will go back to civil service and begin the process again.
All right. Thank you, Chief Mack.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Chief Mack? Okay. Engineer Schneider.
No report, Mr. President.
I see there's another number down the bottom right-hand corner of 371. Or I don't know what number that is or who that is.
That's Miss Scott.
Okay. Ms. Scott, do you have any report?
No report, but I'm available for questions.
Any questions for Ms. Scott? Mayor Whitfield?
Yeah, through you, Council President. Director Scott, do you want to give an update on the Salvation Army piece in terms of the assistance that's available? Because I believe we did renew some more funding from them, and I'm not sure the numbers.
Yes, we did receive the grant agreement for that second round of the CDBG COVID dollars from HUD. So we're waiting for them to actually release those funds. Salvation Army will be receiving additional monies towards utility assistance with some of that money, and that should be available here very soon.
So through you, Council President, council members can continue to direct residents to youcanapply.org if people need assistance paying for the utility bills or the rent.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing that again. Any other questions for Ms. Scott? If not, we'll move forward. President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, community development finance. Item number 2, community development and finance. Item number 3, community development and finance. Item number 4, community development and finance. Item number 5, finance. Item number 6, finance. Item number 7, finance. Item number 8, finance. Item number 9, finance. Item number 10, finance. And item number 11, finance. Petitions and remonstrances from the council members.
There are none.
Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development. A resolution appointing Ramona Jackson and Tamara Schutz to the Community Reinvestment Area CRA Housing Council and declare an emergency.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this resolution be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declare an emergency.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question to call on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2021-2. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and accept, if offered, the FY20 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for the purchase of a ladder truck / apparatus for the Elyria Fire Department.
Mr. Tolet, if you'd like to make a motion for the without the benefit.
I'll make that motion. Mike, you cut off at the end, though. This is an emergency, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Mr. President, I move that we hear this ordinance on its first reading without the benefit of a committee report under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Let's vote on the committee report at this particular time. So can I get a second to move forward without the benefit of the committee report?
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Mr. Laco or Mr. Tolet again, would you make the motion then?
Yes. Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Discussion, Mr. Brubaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I want to thank the mayor's office, the clerk of council's office, and you, Mr. President, members of council, for hearing this. This was a grant that was laid at our feet about a week and a half ago, right after the last council meeting. There is a date of this Friday to submit this. This is why we have it tonight. And please understand, this is not the norm that we want to do. In fact, you will see in the referrals several other grants that we've come across that there will be time to get those through the proper channels. With that being said, as the clerk read there, we have an opportunity through the Department of Homeland Security, the Assistance to Firefighters grants, to apply for up to a $1 million grant. And with dealing with the fire department and the mayor's office and our consultant, we felt the best use of this was to look at applying this towards a new ladder truck apparatus, an aerial as they call it. The one we currently have is a 2009. And my understanding is it's about a 10 to 12 year lifespan on that. So we're getting to that point. And as you know, and Mr. Plesky just shared that, we don't have the resources just to buy one outright. There is a 10% match on this, which means we will have to put in $100,000 of towards the 1 million. However, the quote that we got for a new apparatus, very similar, if not the same type of unit that we currently have in our fleets, is about 1.35. So we would have to make up the difference. I did speak with Finance Director Pileski and Farrell. This would be something that could be paid for out of the issue $6. More than likely, if we were to get this grant, we would not see this apparatus until sometime late 22. And also, please keep in mind, this is a very, 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 very competitive grant. There's going to be a lot of people going after these dollars, and I'm not sure what our chances are, but if we don't apply for it, we have no opportunity to get it. So once again, I appreciate everybody's willingness to hear this without the benefit of committee report, and I'll answer any questions.
Before we get into that, Chief Mack, do you want to weigh in on it and get from the Elyria Fire Department's perspective?
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Brubaker gave a very good overview. The manufacture date's actually in 08, but obviously it does take time to manufacture it. And they do recommend that an apparatus only be used on the front line for emergency cases for 10 years. A little history lesson. That vehicle did not run on a daily basis, but when we did close station number 2 years ago, when the economy went down, the closing of the fire station and the reduction of staffing did put that vehicle in a position that it does respond on medical emergencies, as well as special duties in that west and southwest part of the city. So there has been a lot more wear and tear and mileage, in part because of closing of the fire station. It is a competitive grant, but with the cost of an apparatus, I think it's a very wise thing to do at this time. I mean, regardless, we will have to plan to purchase one in the very near future.
Okay. From that, I'll open it up to anybody from the council, to Director Brubaker or Chief Mack regarding the applying for it and the usage of issue $6. I mean, this is part of what we try to do to reinvest back into our departments. Ms. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Chief Mack, when you apply for this grant, does it necessary, what city size is you said it's a lot of competition. So what city size is going after this grant?
The funds are distributed among the urban, the rural, suburban, metro departments. So from that standpoint, we're in a competitive position. They look at a lot of different things. They look at the city, they look at the demographics, the growth, the finances, and they look at your fire department, your apparatus fleet. So I think we have a good grant team. We have a great finance team. And in speaking with our grant personnel and the director and myself, if we have to choose an area to go for a grant for this money, this would be the best place for us to place our dollars.
Thank you.
And I'll add in there, Mr. President, if you don't mind, one thing that's going to help us is that we have the finances, the $100,000 to match. And if council so chooses, we have the ability to cover that difference. So we have skin in the game in regard to this as well.
Any other questions from city council members? Mr. Pileski, Finance Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you're making your pitch for the grant, don't forget to include the pending loss of one of our largest employers, Bendix. That certainly is worth noting, and make sure they know that we are losing, I believe they're our second largest employer now.
Yes, we'll be looking at that as we put together the financial portion of the package, and thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. Just a question. Did they call that old ladder truck the snorkel?
No, that's a different style. That's a very old truck that had an articulating boom that it has not been in service the whole time I was there, but we still had it in the fleet inventory, but it wasn't usable. So this is what we call an aerial or a bucket truck. So it has a 100-foot ladder with a basket on the end.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Brubaker or Chief Mack regarding what's being proposed here?
Question on the issue.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Baker.
Ordinance 2021-17. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter an amendment number 7 to the agreement with AECom Technical Services, Inc. for management services for the city of Elyria wastewater pollution plant, consolidated SSO/CSO/WWPCP, wet weather plan, and declared an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
I second it.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question be called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-18. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional service agreement with Osborne Engineering for professional design services for the East Broad Street resurfacing reconstruction project and declared an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion? I do have a question for Mr. Schneider. So, Mr. Schneider, what is the limits of this project?
The limit extend from Abbey Road South, west over to East Bridge, Cedar Street location.
East Bridge, Cedar Street. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Is there any other discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-19. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the resurfacing of a portion of Lowell Street.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Simmons. Is there any discussion?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
1-20. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the Lower Elyria TLCI Phase 4 project and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question to
Oh,
call.
I'm sorry, Mr. Baird.
Question, Mr. Baird.
Yeah, in reading this, I see where it's gonna be. from Second Street, West Avenue, curbs, ramps, adding a bioswale Green Street concept area on Broad Street across from Washington Avenue. I'm trying to visualize how that's going to work exactly. If anybody knows.
Mr. Snyder?
Thank you, Mr. President. The project is it's kind of all over the place in the downtown area. There's various items are in different locations. There's streetlights on Second Street. The area in front of Washington Avenue, it's right in front of the comic book store. The bricks over there are in bad condition, and so are the planters and whatnot. So we were looking to spruce that area up a little bit by doing kind of a streetscape there. Maybe put a bioswale in was one of our things we were looking at to try to collect some of the stormwater, because the area doesn't drain the greatest on that sidewalk because of the poor bricks and things of that nature. So it was more so to bring that area more so as inviting to people and things of that nature.
Through you, Mr. President. Is that similar to what's on East Avenue? Is that those bioswales? Is that the term?
Yes, you're talking south of 4th Street on the east side of the road, and largely,
right.
Yes, those are bioswales. All they are is a place to allow stormwater to drain into and allow the bioswale to clean it and keep pollutants out of the storm sewer, and which ultimately keeps it out of the river and whatnot.
Kind of like a filter.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Will they be to that size, John, or?
That's to be determined. Odds are it'll be smaller.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2021-21.
Perfect.
Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a amendment number 2 to the agreement with the Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for design plans for the water treatment plant project and declare emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
21-22. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the city of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone real property located at 4900 Midway Mall and 4950 Midway Mall, Elyria, Ohio, from B-G Business General District to L-I Light Industrial District, and declare an emergency.
I declare this public hearing has been held. Public hearing scheduled for February 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Zoom live stream.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the city of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone certain real property located at 621 49th Street, Elyria, Ohio, from B-N Business Neighborhood District to a B-AO Business Automotive Orient District.
I declare that this ordinance has had its second reading. Public hearing scheduled for Monday, February 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Zoom live streaming.
That's all ordinances second reading.
Ordinances third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the presence of the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on 2/8. Note that the meeting's going to be held at 6:15. Excuse me, that's the special. The meeting will be held at 6 p.m. All items referred. And should we? Okay, and then also Community Development requests the presence of the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on February 16th at 6:15, special meeting. All items referred. Finance requests the presence of the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on 2/8, streamed live at 6 p.m. following joint with CD. All items referred. And Strategic Planning requests the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Auditor, and Solicitor on 2/16, immediately following council meeting. All items referred.
All right, miscellaneous and unfinished business. Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, through you to the clerk, what was the date of the community development meeting after the 8th?
16th.
Okay, thank you. At 6:15.
At 6:50, correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Callahan.
Yes, I would like to clear that up. Thank you, Mr. President. This is through you. Late this afternoon, I was contacted by Dawn in the mayor's office in regards to the Planning Commission having postponed their meeting from up until, I believe, the 12th. So this is the reason why we're going to conduct a meeting at 6:15 for community development for 2 items that will be discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, which has been postponed. So that meeting at 6:15 on the 16th is prior to the council meeting. So I hope that helped clear things up. This happened late this afternoon.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, can the administration make sure they have all the information needed for the community development so that, we can make sure that we're all have all that information available. Mr. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, this is to the mayor. Hello, Mayor Whitfield. How are you?
Excellent.
I don't see that Ren is with us tonight. 2 weeks ago, I had asked her about including Parks and Rec on the webpage, main page on the left where it has departments. She said that that wouldn't be any problem. I'll send her an email tomorrow. I'd like to see that done. And I also noticed that under boards, the Elyria Park and Recreation Board is not listed on the website. So I'd like to have both of those things addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other miscellaneous business? Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, through you, it's that time of year again. It's time to get our streets together. So if you could please go out in your ward, write down what streets need to, that you feel need to be done. Engineer Schneider has sent everyone a list of last year's rankings. So if you can get that to Mr. Schneider and copy me on the email, that'd be great. Thank you. The sooner we get it done, the sooner we can start. And hopefully when spring comes early, they can start working on the streets. Thanks.
Excellent. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President, and this question may be directed towards the Chief Building Inspector Farkas if he's in the meeting, or Safety Service Director Brubaker. Is there any program in place to check the structures of the buildings downtown on like an annual or semi-annual basis? I'm all for the demolishing and to the refurbish for fixing up and doing new facades and new buildings. But the old ones, has there been something in place that we go check these out so that they don't get in such bad shape so we can catch them and fix them up before we have to demolish them?
Mr. President, through you to Councilman Mr. Oswald, just keep in mind the building that was demolished there at the corner was demolished at the request of the private owner. The city did not order them to demolish that building. To answer your question directly, the building department can only view buildings from the public right of way. The only way that the building department can get into these buildings is if consent is signed for and given by the owner of the building to make access to the building. However, the fire department, because on commercial buildings, has the ability on annual inspections to get inside, but also keep in mind that they are inspecting based on the fire code, and Chief Mack, who just jumped back on, can delve into more on what the fire department can do.
Chief Mack?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. President. The fire department is pretty much limited to the life safety systems that are inside the building. If we do notice something that does look potentially dangerous, we can make a reference to the building department. But as the director stated, unless it's a known safety issue, we are very limited as far as just life safety. So that would be the sprinkler systems, the exit doors, anything that would deal with the Ohio Fire Code. So the building code and the fire code are separate, but we do work together as best possible. But we are not structural engineers, and a lot of the things that are being described are structural, and really they're the responsibility of the owner of the building.
Thank you. I guess, the question's kind of in hindsight, if possibly something could have been done to do a regular check. And I know when it's a personal building, they don't want to spend the money on it. I get it. But maybe, I don't know if there would be something a little bit more aggressive to check these places out and see if we could kind of try to save some of them so they're not so costly for these people that own them to do something with them and rehab them. And I know tearing them down sometimes is the best option. So thank you. I was just curious about that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I did have a question for either Mr. Brubaker or in regards to the demolition that took place on the northeast corner of Broad and Washington Avenue. I haven't been back there in a little bit, but where is that at as far as, I know the building's totally down, but as far as the other debris and everything like that, what is the timeline on that? Or
Through you, Mr. President, to you and members of council, that will be determined. I know they're removing the debris from there. There's a lot of debris, and normally on something like that, from the date that it's completely down on a commercial size, that way it could take 7 to 10 days before everything is removed. And also keep in mind, in the building department and engineering department will inspect it to make sure all the lines and whatnot have been properly capped.
okay. Who else? Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. President. This is the Chief Whiteley. Since our last meeting, I believe it was the day after our last meeting, there was a very large drug bust that the Elyria Police Department was involved in partnership with, I think, DEA. And I wanted to tell you congratulations, and please give your team kudos on behalf of us. It was incredible. I
Will do.
Details.
Thank you.
So thank you.
And I had one other thing, parking ban for snow. Mr. Brubaker or Chief Whiteley, what is the process for that? I had someone call me earlier this week, north side on Livermore. What is the process for that? If that
through you, Mr. President, to council, I did look at that for this coming weekend. The projected snow for us fell well below what we typically look at. If we get 6 to 8 inches and it's projected, we do have a process to issue a snow ban for parking within the designated areas that's within that snow ban. And I know last winter, I think I was out with a driver over in the Eastern Heights area, and there were several vehicles when we had a ban in. We contacted police, and they had the vehicles towed. So we do have that in place. I did review that, but the projected was not anywhere close to where we felt that should happen.
So does Livermore have signs there that is for that, or is it just, is there certain streets within the city that have that?
Through you, Mr. President, it's only certain streets, and I could send that list to council members so you're aware of it. I know with new developments going in and things of that nature, we do review that. So I will also work with the engineer's office to determine where that is. But we also have to be careful when we put those in place, because we do have our older section of the city. We have the St. Jude's area, we have the South Side area. where those folks don't have driveways. So we try to, we try to work with them as well.
Sure. I think that would be helpful. That way everyone's got a understanding of where those streets are fall.
Yep.
Any other miscellaneous and unfinished business? Mr. Baird?
Yeah, I was in Florida over the weekend. They don't have a problem with snow bans. I don't, maybe we could copy that.
Should have bought Kenny a drink.
If there's no other business, I move we adjourn.
Moved by Mr. Second by Mr. Sarah. Any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nay. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.